Chapter 1. Royce stared into the mirror of wisdom, and for the first few moments all he could see was the reflection of the world around him. He saw the collapsing shape of the first of the 7 Isles, the flow of the waves around the boat, the presence of Mark, Neve, Matilde, Ember the Hawk, and Gwilym the wolf-like bargear. In those moments it seemed impossible to understand why Dust had screamed on looking into it, why his father had warned Royce against looking, or why it had driven Barihash mad down in his grotto beneath the volcano. It seemed like no more than an ordinary mirror. "Royce, is this a good idea?" Mark demanded from further back in the boat. His friend sounded worried, and Royce could understand the reasons for it. They'd all been through so much, and the dangers of the 7 Isles were more than real. Mark had at least one fresh scar from the experience, while ash from the island sat in his dark hair. Neve and Matilde sat at the heart of the boat, controlling the sail between them. Royce could see them in the mirror, the Picty girl dark-haired and tattooed in woad, Matilde's red hair matted with what might have been blood from one of the many fights they'd had. In the mirror, Royce thought he caught a flicker of something. The two of them in a cottage somewhere. Royce kept looking, determined to see all that the mirror would show him. Gwilym barked a warning, but Royce ignored the bargear. He needed to know. He needed to see what had happened to his father. The moment the mirror started to connect with him, it felt like the whole world coming into focus, the reflection from the glass spreading out so that it seemed to encompass everything Royce could see. Looking at the world in the mirror, he realized that he could make out every blade of grass on distant beaches, understand every movement of the currents that threatened to pull the boat this way and that. Almost without thinking about it, Royce moved to the tiller, making a small course correction that sent them past the spot where rocks waited just beneath the waves. "Why did you do that?" Mark asked. Royce opened his mouth to explain about the rocks, but even as he did he could feel his grip on the mirror slipping away, the patterns there too complex to both hold and explain, the sight of which could be twisted too much by any attempt to explain it. Royce clamped his mouth shut, determined to keep looking. Royce could see now how the mirror of wisdom might send men mad. Possibilities tumbled through his mind like the rocks that fell from the collapsing volcano they were putting further and further behind them with every moment. Even those rocks held possibilities, with Royce seeing the ways that every breath of wind or jolt of the earth might send them tumbling in a fractionally different direction. "And they're just rocks!" Royce exclaimed to himself as he continued to stare into the mirror. There was a kind of clarity and focus there that he had never experienced before, but which threatened to overwhelm him if he wasn't careful. There was so much of everything to see in the mirror that it was almost impossible to focus on anything, and Royce had to drag his attention back to what he wanted again and again. The flight of birds distracted him for a moment, then the play of sunlight off the waves. Each held so many secrets, and the sheer knowing of it all made Royce's brain feel as though it were about to burst. He saw every possibility, and trying to narrow those down to just the ones that mattered was like trying to pick a single tree out of a forest, with all its branching paths. "Show me the fight to come," Royce demanded of the mirror. "Show me what I have to do. Show me my father." He saw then, and for a moment the horror of it threatened to overwhelm him, threatened to make him cry out in despair the way Dust had done. He saw then all the reasons why Dust had come after him. He saw the death that would follow in the battles, the ways in which the war might drag on and on. Royce saw the fight against King Caris dragging the whole kingdom into bloody civil war, and the endless, endless deaths that might follow. He saw the potential for victory, and attempts to make the kingdom a better place, but Royce also saw all the ways that it could go wrong. He saw venal courtiers, saw a son with Genevieve who would grow and... "No," Royce said, shaking his head, forcing himself to look more clearly. He had to remember that this was how the mirror worked. It didn't show one set line, merely set out the consequences of actions. He could see dark paths, paths filled with death, but he could also see ways for the world to be so much more.